Whiting Street House, #2, another business. There is a party interested in purchasing the house and allowing the owner to still live there until she can get into elderly housing.
Yes, so that's not a done deal, right?
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
Where it says someone offered to purchase for the town, the APDC, was, floating the idea of, purchasing the, property to, preserve it and keep it from, being demolished.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it, those two
Okay.
items.
And then I had under old business paragraph 1, I forwarded the design guidelines to the town manager, not the town clerk, and the chair of the select board. So those are 2 changes noted, which I'll make sure that Wynn gets those. So we can get the meeting minutes. Anything on your end, Nathan?
No.
Okay, all right, so all those in favor of the meeting minutes as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so minutes have been approved for 9 people, pending those changes. Under correspondence, I talked to Chris Ruth today via email messages and phone messages. I asked him what the status of the 2 projects for both the Ritter Memorial Building and Town Hall. The last time we had discussed Town Hall, they had open bids, the bids were excessively high, the bid was excessively high, there was only a single bid. Really nothing's changed, they haven't, gone out for another bid on Town Hall. They were talking about doing it in phases rather than trying to do all the work at one time, but that has not happened. And with regards to Ritter Memorial, Chris had mentioned that we're gonna try and get an updated estimate. That has not happened either. So both of the facilities, which we've looked at, have not really moved forward. And with your permission, I think that I'd like to address, I'd like to send an email to chair of the select board saying that we are very concerned about the lack of progress, particularly on this building. Because every day that goes by, there's more deterioration of the Ritter building. Town Hall, not quite so much. But clearly this building is suffering from, so any comments about, alerting them? Should we not?
I share your, I share your concern, just to a degree. I've been following it closely enough to know like what the issue is. Can't hurt. I mean, like maybe this is better. Maybe, yeah, just let them know I guess what Chris has told us is there's no progress. They're not gonna take the high bid, the one bid.
Right.
Maybe a way to do is there a plan or a schedule to solicit additional bidders or something like that?
Right.
That's maybe better than just, and if they say no, then we can go a little harder,
Okay, all right.
Deterioration is continuing on the building. The
Very much so.
And the masonry has been suffering for the last year. It's kind of demolition by neglect.
So be very diplomatic with my email.
I mean, what do we have, what specific examples of deterioration are you thinking of?
Chimneys, windowsills, windows are continuing to deteriorate. Water's getting in different areas, so.
I think that my concern is that an updated estimate for this building is critical, because I think it would demonstrate that there isn't enough money to do the work, even if they get around to sending it out for bids.
Hmm.
Which means that, um, it gets conceivable that there won't be a bid on this building until after a special town meeting, providing they figure out how much it's gonna cost to actually do the work. The other thing that, the other wild and crazy thought that runs through my mind is that to revise the documents to make it more affordable, you know, maybe not do the grandiose, ramp that they have designed. Maybe not replace all of the windows. There are some windows, like the main window in the conference room, that desperately needs to be replaced. But maybe they take that approach, you know, but without there being any action at all, I think that, you know, we're gonna get to a situation where they may eventually get an updated estimate, and then they're gonna discover that there isn't enough money to do this project.
Yeah, I mean, I guess two ways, maybe we could, how could we move it along? I don't have all kinds of bandwidth, but one thing. I don't know if the project they have might be. There might be eligible for some grant funding, particularly for the historical, maybe not the expansion, but for at least for the rehabilitation piece. And then the second thing would be doing some research to find out what construction companies are doing these projects for, different cities around doing these different towns around the Commonwealth, and maybe making a few phone calls and seeing, if they would be interested in bidding on it. I don't know how much work they did before. They just posted it somewhere and only got one, I don't know. It seems pretty weird. I mean, towns are pretty good. So, I mean, like pretty reliable payers. So I would think that would be a pretty good project for somebody to pick up. It's weird that there's only one bidder.
The way the construction is now, there's a lot of people that are leaving construction. Baby boomer generation, a lot of people are dying and retiring or sick.
Okay.
And so you have a limited supply and you have a huge demand with a lot of government funds going into infrastructure from the federal government
I see.
and state projects. So those are primo jobs.
Right.
So it's going to be, and so whatever you get for a town like ours, there's a lot of inflation in construction, wages, and materials because of the infrastructure bill, as well as the way times are now. And prices are just, the longer you wait, the more it's gonna cost.
I think-
So your point that maybe is it worth just, documenting what things you've assessed that, are kind of like deteriorate. If that's the case, then it's really maybe, which I don't doubt, like, if that's the most salient factor here, then it's sort of not so much on the town really to get this done. And maybe you were talking about a lower estimate, maybe we need something that's just really just like, maintenance type, patch the stuff that is deteriorating, decrease the rate of deterioration. So basically say, if we don't have expectations that we can get a reasonable bid, then maybe we should put together a proposal and here's the items we would suggest look at, and maybe, I don't know if you already have that. No, okay.
I think the thing that worries me the most, though, Nathan, is that there's been no movement on things that they committed to us. So I think it was in January that we had heard about the bid. I mean, we're 4 months into this year, and if we have no, and I sense that there's no initiative to get an updated estimate to see where we are with the Ritter building.
I mean, it could, I think that, I don't know what the answer is. My guess is there has been a lot of budgetary issues this year that have probably pushed a lot of this stuff out of the frame for them.
I would agree, except
But it's we could bring it back, bring it back in or whatever, or at least look for, what do you get guidance, like, what are you thinking? When do you think this, and then, and then if we do want a suggestion about you know,
Doing some maintenance.
some maintenance, would that go into the capital budget? I don't know where that would go.
So that's the facilities manager, right? That's
Yeah,
not, that's
so
not
it's-
us.
Yeah, yeah.
We're trying to, we're drawing.
I guess I wanna just see some movement, either. But to do nothing for 4 months.
Well, it seems like the legitimate thing that's within our purview that you guys mentioned was it's not really within our purview to drive expansion project or the one thing that is, if there's something that rises, we're starting to get to the point of demolition, you might have like, maybe we just bring that up with the building inspector. If it's maintenance, if it's a maintenance budget thing, then drive it through him, and instead of going to the select board and making noise there, we should just go to Chris Ruth and whatever, and that'll sort of put it back on the radar again, so like, oh yeah, we thought we were gonna fix this by doing this, but we're not, so I guess we're gonna give Chris's money or whatever.
Okay.
I mean, it's just like that, it doesn't, I think it's good that it's great that you're keeping this on the radar. I just think in terms of you ask, what should we do? I think we have to think what's gonna be the most helpful if the town's hands are in fact. And we can ask them for an update, that's not that bothersome, it's a fair question, right?
Mhm.
With everything that's going on, what's the select board's thoughts or the town manager's thoughts as to when, revisiting the bid for that project is gonna happen? That's a fair question. Like, I think it's about the extent of it, but the maintenance thing, it sounds like from what you guys are saying, we should, bring that to the attention of the building.
Yeah, what was really funny in November of 2022, when we had our override vote, we took on this, our original review of the project. Marjorie got up and talked about the one broken window. That did get fixed after that comment that she made. So it's kind of like, you never underestimate the power of a squeaky wheel. So, okay, all right, let's move to our current business. I will draft a note, and I'll send it to you all and see if you're comfortable with what I'm gonna say. And I think I'll probably send it back to Chris, keep it in his lap with a CC to the town manager, just to say, okay, we are concerned, and, can you give us what kind of schedule we can expect? When should we do additional follow-up, something along those lines?
So is that 2 notes, a note to Chris about the maintenance stuff?
No, I think it'll be just one note, and I'll include it and say that our concern is driven by a couple of things. One is that there may not be, that the building continues to deteriorate, the paint, the windows, the wooden gutters, yeah, they all continue to suffer from exposure, which is really the case. And then the second thing would be, is there gonna be enough money to move forward with the project as currently designed, and that would be, one of the ways to determine that would be to get the revised estimate, as you all had indicated. you were gonna do.
Damon was supposed to provide that.
Yeah, yeah.
So we haven't heard anything.
No,
about that.
no, and I think that, no, it may be that Damon is been asked and he hasn't done it, or that I might suspect that they probably haven't asked him, because that's gonna be something that they'd have to pay for. So,
Yeah.
all right, so I'll draft a note, I'll send that to you both, and then if you have had a chance to look at it, we'll send that off to Chris with a copy to the town manager. Okay, Richard, I'll ask for your assistance in conducting a public hearing, because I've never done this before. But at 7:54, I'd like to move into the portion of our general meeting tonight that's to do the public hearing. I don't believe we have to do a roll call to go into the public hearing unless you tell me otherwise. But I do have to read the purpose of the public hearing. So, the Lunenburg Architectural Preservation District Commission is holding a public hearing this evening to review and adopt changes to existing design guidelines as required by the Architectural Preservation District bylaw, section 113-5, paragraph A. The revised guidelines have been made available for the public to view on our webpage, the Architectural Preservation District webpage, and on the Town of Lunenburg website. The scope of the changes were to simplify the language associated with the design guidelines that had been approved in 2017. And we've eliminated sections of the guideline and the purpose of making the guidelines more brief and easier for folks to review. And probably the most significant functional change was to add an additional form that would allow us to do a preliminary determination of applicability. And that would hopefully allow for someone who's planning something easy, something simple, something that's minor in nature, to get our input as to, yes, you can proceed with that work without having to submit a certificate to alter, which has been the case in the past. So those are the changes that were made. The package had been sent to the select board as well as to the town manager. And we provided the 35 days for their review. And after the conclusion of that 35th day, we then requested a public hearing, and that's the event that we're going to do tonight. So with that, I'll stop talking and ask if there's any comments from first with Richard and then Nathan.
No, I have no comment.
Nathan?
No comment as well, kind of, just take a peek at that real quick.
Yeah.
This is the agenda, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
All right, no comment.
All right, so
Just the only comment is, I think it's useful streamlining. I don't think anyone's, I think it's, just good stuff overall, and thanks.
okay. All right, so with that, we do have to do a roll call vote for approval. I need a motion so we can then have our vote. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the amendments to the guidelines.
Richard?
A second.
All right. So all those in favor, I'll do a roll call. Richard?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
And myself, also aye. So with that, we now have revised guidelines. One of the things I'm going to do is I will contact our webmaster, Kara McCarthy, tomorrow and let her know that the guidelines are now approved as of today's date, 9 May. I'll make a change to the copy. And then I'll prepare separate attachments. Right now, the design guidelines includes the new form as well as the revised CTA. But I'll create standalone forms and ask her to post the revised design guidelines approved with tonight's date. And then the two forms. And then I'm also going to approach her with the idea of seeing how difficult it would be to make the PDF form active, so that if somebody wants to submit both the determination of applicability form as well as the CTA, they can do so by doing that on the town's website. So I'll see if she can get that done. If not, it'll require someone to download, fill it out, scan it, and then send it in, send it back to us when we have an action that requires our attention.
It's a lot more work that way.
Yeah, it is. So with that, I will move that we close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so our public hearing is concluded. All right, so the next item on current business was review of our April 24th meeting with town council. Nathan joined me. Thank you very much for taking the time to do that, Nathan.
No,
So it's always good to have two sets of ears, when you're talking to an attorney. Probably, there were, we've gone back to him, talk about solar. We went back and talked about the potential for creating, what did you call it? Rubber hose carrots. I love that phrase, Nathan. And so that was the second item. And then the third item that we had talked to him about was the expansion of the Architectural Preservation District. And we'll start with that one. He says, yeah, you can do that. He says it would take a vote by the time, be a warrant required and a formal town meeting vote. He said, you basically would eliminate the specific authority over the architectural preservation district and just make it townwide. He says, he didn't know of anybody that had done that. He says, but that's the way you would proceed. In terms of solar, he did indicate that there is a lot of emphasis being placed by the state to do solar without restriction, as easy as it can be for anyone who's interested in it. We talked about our approach to solar being that, we would ask that the homeowners do as much as they can to shield. And there's a current thread on the Massachusetts preservation listserv today and yesterday that's been dealing with excessively large electrical boxes.
Mhm.
And people were saying, how do we handle that? And I think that what we would do is we would say, if you can put it out of view, from street side view, do that. And he agreed with that approach. And then with regards to coming up with some sort of a way to pass money off to a homeowner, like our one case on Lancaster Avenue, or the case of 50 Main Street. He said that would be a little more difficult to do because there is no current authority that, we could, or we could take money that we would have and give it to somebody else. And he says that, I think he called that a special appropriation. He says, that happens all the time, but it would also require a town meeting vote. He says, and there would be a need for some research on it. He says he's not aware of any town that his firm serves, and he says we serve about 40 towns in the state of Massachusetts where they've done that. So the issue is, I think for us, the other three things that we had discussed with him, the one that really kind of caught my interest was this idea of expanding the architectural preservation district, our authority. And Nathan, before you showed up, we had begun to discuss the potential for, is there a need to maybe look at merging the historical commission with what we do in order to have maybe a single body that looks at preservation activities, townwide, but with some of the language associated with our bylaw. And as far as I can tell, the historical commission is being driven by the state's language, the state's laws associated with historical commissions. There's not a specific town bylaw for the historical commission. So I'll just throw it out there. Should we give this some discussion, maybe meet with the historical commission? There was the warrant that, we voted on at the town meeting on Saturday that, codified the fact that there are now 5 members appointed by the select board. And, and then I heard Dave Passios mention that he thought that there would be some more work that needed to be done on the historical commission. So maybe this is the time to bring this up. Thoughts?
I mean, I think there could be benefits. I think it's really part of, honestly, like, I don't know, I'd be curious what Richard probably has a lot of perspective on this, being, a member of both boards. I can imagine the work that we, I think it seems like an amount of work that a single board could handle. But I think the issue is really like, I mean, so right now the APD exists because the APDC exists because the APD creates it to administer certain things in the APD bylaw. So I don't really have, I think the issues are, there might be legal ones, like you mentioned, that the historical commission is in state statute, so I don't know if its powers or, scope is circumscribed in a way that would prohibit it from doing this. Maybe there's a separation of powers argument, like, the historical commission's like very focused on preservation, and this is focused a little bit more on, balancing stuff. I don't know, for me, that wouldn't necessarily be insurmountable, I think. So I'd be open to it. I think we need to, get the legal, and then as far as what would it take to change, we talked about a couple different changes here, not to make, but like, for example, you talked about, like what we talked about regarding expanding the architectural preservation district.
Right.
At that point, it's almost not an APD bylaw anymore, it's now a architectural preservation bylaw.
Right.
And now we're talking about changing what administers it. So I think these are all important and reasonable things. I think just there's a question of realistically, like, if we go to town meeting and we think. We talked about, like, even to make a case for expanding the APD, we probably need to get those rubber hoses and we need to get those carrots as well as sticks, and the type of streamlining we're doing now and things we've talked about. We need to move that forward so the town can trust us with expanding that, right? So it's just, there's a lot of moving parts here, like, should we go to, we want to, based on, I think there's an urgent need to at least expand the district to include some of the properties that are very close to the historic district. That's like a absolute must. I think it's a great idea to expand, to change it from an APD to just an AP, cover the whole town, but I think there's a little bit more legal risk and political risk in terms of town meeting, a lot more political risk, like the surface area of opposition.
Much bigger.
Much bigger, like you really gotta convince a lot of people that this is gonna be totally okay for them. So I guess, and then you talk about, so I guess, maybe we need a roadmap here, in terms of like, I think these are great ideas, but I think we may need to prioritize them. I think we try to do them all at once, it may be too much, but I think there are some good things. I'm not saying we should only do one at a time, but I think we should definitely, like, if you ask me to rank them, I'd say, let's definitely get that APD, the current APD expanded to its what are more natural boundaries at the next town meeting. That would be number one. Number two would be this stuff we were talking to the lawyer about rewriting the APD bylaw for clarity and to streamline some of the things that we've talked about streamlining. I think that's like probably rewriting that bylaw and then adding in some of these carrots, like and softer punishments, like the loan program, and look into that stuff. The lien stuff, is that doable? I think we should also, just for, again, as part of that process, look at there's a updating of bylaws so that we can actually don't have to go to court for all the penalties. We could administer the penalties administratively. So, and then the next big ones would be like hand it over, merge with the historical commission, which I think, I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, can you imagine, like, Richard wasn't on both boards, like, we'd get a lot from your presence on this committee, like everybody brings something, but it's almost like we feel like we almost have the benefit of merging without, because Richard's here, but I think that may be indicative of, so I think that makes, so sorry for babbling on, but I just think we just gotta take these things in steps, but I think we should definitely track them, create a document and revisit them and see how are we doing on our first priority, kind of thing.
Go ahead, Richard, what do you think?
There's a lot of points of similarity, so merging would take away a lot of redundancy with, like, handling the demo delay bylaw, right? It would go to the APDC. It's a much simpler thing. It's a much simpler process than going through 18 months of waiting and review, and then, and with some people, developers, with, negotiations or litigation, or they're waiting it out, they're not. There's no teeth for the, this, demolition delay. We have a nice setup. We have a nice, a really good bylaw that's strong compared to a lot of communities, but again, there's not a lot of teeth, so if someone wants to ignore us and the bylaw, there's not a lot of recourse. So that with the APDC, that would give that bylaw strength if that was turned over to the APDC townwide.
Yeah. So you think that makes sense would be to do those two things kind of in unison? And if we got to the point where we were able to make the AP, the architectural preservation district really not be a district anymore, and be townwide, then it would really become a natural.
An architectural preservation commission.
Do you know, Richard, I sense that we're kind of unique in having an architectural preservation district commission and a historical commission in the town. I sense that we're unique based on what I've been seeing, on the listserv responses and queries.
Yeah.
So that, like, one of the things that I would do is that I would propose that we go back to Adam Costa, because his business and his firm is all about, kind of scanning
Mhm.
what towns like Lunenburg can do best. I think that expanding the APD, by saying we're not an APD anymore, we're an architectural preservation, bylaw for the whole town. I think that's gonna be a big bite. I mean, I think that, without the carrots and the other pieces, it's gonna be a huge bite. But I think it's still possible. What we know is that we got community. I'm actually, I'm amazed at how many volunteers Lunenburg has doing what looks like a lot of the same things. Like an open space committee, the green community, the park district. A lot of those things are kind of the same, and here we are, historical commission,
Yeah.
architecture preservation district commission. I mean, we're kind of doing the same thing, except our focus is, we have greater authority, but with a more narrow focus. But, going back to the discussions that I've heard in the master planning process, where people want to retain the historical nature of Lunenburg, it's the houses that are beyond and the structures that are beyond the APD that people really like to see, things like the stone walls. I mean, there was a lot of conversation in one of the public meetings about the stone walls. And, we have the authority to have input on that, and according to the architecture preservation bylaw within the district, but we have no authority to go beyond that. I mean, I just think there's so much redundancy here.
There is, with the stone walls, the planning board has jurisdiction over those, I believe, in the scenic roads.
Right.
So they have that jurisdiction. They used to have other jurisdiction over different things, and that was transferred to the historic commission in years gone by where it belonged. But same thing with it, I don't know that they have time to be thinking about, unless somebody complains about the town's historic walls. A lot of them have been lost in development.
I do know that one development close to my house at the corner of Holman and Northfield, that the developer had removed some of the stone wall that was up there, and before they got the final permit, occupancy permit, they had to put stone wall back, so you can see it's not the same as what it was there, but the intent, was you're bringing that stone back, and the developer did that.
I haven't seen that, but they bulldozed the wall all along the front of that corner when they went in to log that lot years ago. And I had brought it up, but nothing was done about it. The developer was called a few times and they had never put the wall back at that point. But it was a violation, it's a scenic road, but nobody does anything about it. So kind of redundancy if that was with the historic commission or the or townwide APD commission. It
So,
would be more appropriate.
so consensus here is this something we want to explore.
I think it's a good idea to talk to town council about it.
Okay. And then, then after, so that'd be the first step. We'll have that conversation with him. And then we need to lay out kind of, I agree with you, Nathan, big chunks don't get swallowed easily, you know? So we gotta kind of do this in a way that's gonna be successful.
Right.
Not just a waste of our time going before the town and having everyone. But by the same token, you know, when you have the town meeting vote on warrants, you know, to make the commission, you know, more legal. You know, it's kind of like, let's get on a track here that makes both of the work that we're both doing more effective. So, and I think that's one of the issues, is that we're discussing expanding our authority by you know, making the APD bigger,
Mhm.
so that we can be more capable of preserving a piece of property, because the historical commission can't do that, other than just doing a demolition delay letter. You know, so it's like, we want to see this happen, you know, so we've got to kind of figure out a way to make this work. And I think that eliminating redundancy will make that a more powerful case. And finding ways to entice people to want to preserve their houses. I mean, I think one of the misconceptions that we've had is that we're gonna tell people they can't do things. And I don't think that, there's no evidence that the Architecture Preservation District hasn't been willing to work with people to let them do things, you know? Like windows it's always a big issue, you know, like this building here, you know, we didn't want to see the windows get replaced. Because, you know, we felt that the windows were in good shape, didn't need to be replaced. So, this is gonna become, I think, I'll see when we can meet with Adam Costa. I'll get a time, I'll let you both know, I'll let William know. And then we'll take it from there. We'll maybe lay out a roadmap after our conversation with him. One of the things that he did say when we met with him, he said that he normally briefs the town manager about the discussions he's had with individuals.
Mhm.
And he says, you want me to bring up this idea of expanding the Architecture Preservation Commission's authority townwide? And we said, yes, you know, so I'm gonna be anxious to see if he did do that, if there was any feedback from her.
Mhm.
So,
Good.
okay, all righty. On the solar, I did manage to talk to Matthew Brenner after town meeting on Saturday, and I said, hey, I says, you know, because the town had a big warrant dealing basically with battery energy systems. You know, these truck-like structures that get parked next to solar fields and sometimes next to people's property. So the planning board got with, in fact, he actually took a picture of the vote. Everybody was in favor of the warrant. There was not a single vote in opposition to what the planning board had proposed for these battery energy systems. He took a photo of the outcome. Now, it was the last vote that we took. And everybody was ready to go.
Motivated.
Yeah, everybody was motivated to go. So I did say, hey, you know, we want to be in discussion about solar for residential units, and I told him about our issues that we've had, and he says, I didn't ignore your email. He says, we've just been focusing on the energy system piece. He says, we're gonna do more work on the town's solar bylaw. So he says, we'll include you in that discussion. So, okay, moving on to old business, 925 Mass Avenue development proposal, the little gas station over across the street. very interesting discussion. See if we can summarize this quickly. They're not done with all of their environmental investigations. Additional monitoring wells are gonna be put in. And they haven't defined the cleanup standard yet, which I think is kind of putting the cart before the horse, come up with your potential cleanup standards for the various types of activities, and then you say, can somebody do these various types of activities? I made the point that, maybe turning the place into a parking lot, and I'm not a proponent for parking lots, but maybe turning the place into a parking lot should be considered, given the restrictions that may take place when they come up with the final numbers for cleanup in that site. There was some concern by the town's conservation administrator about potential contamination moving off the site. And that hasn't been defined yet. That hasn't been determined whether there's been any contamination that's moved off the site. And of course, adjacent to it is wetlands. But my experiences in the environmental business, having spent many years dealing with this, is that they probably will find, when they do the additional wells, that there's reason to believe that contamination has gone off the site. So my input to the group was, don't ignore the potential to turn that into a parking lot, because the environmental restrictions, for parking is pretty minimal. You're not gonna put a child care facility there, you're not gonna put, a house there. Unless you do clean up well beyond what anyone was projecting. They had their, certified environmental professional on the call, and he kind of agreed with that. And then the person that's been hired to do the proposed development plans. One of the things that I did say, based on Brian Gingras, his point of view was, hey, they did a new bakery in Pepperell, where he lives, and an old gas station. And he says it seems to be very successful. Now, one of the issues that encumbers that site is that if you did a bakery, you'd have to find additional parking. There's not enough space on that lot for parking for a business. And that's the case in Pepperell, but there's lots of street parking close by. And he says, I don't know whether the owner got, a legal agreement for additional parking, but he says, maybe we should pursue that. I did say that if we can save the building, I'm a proponent for saving it, but only if that saving creates value greater than turning it into a parking lot. I says, we keep hearing that parking's always an issue for town hall meetings, in the town hall that we have. I says, this may be a way to support, keeping town hall as a viable facility in the business district. So they have the contractor who's doing this work. It's a small task. It's a $25,000 effort to come up with a proposed development plan for the town. It's being funded by the state of Massachusetts. And they have a deadline. Their task has to be done by, I think, the middle or the end of June. So that's one of the things. We'll hear what the proposal is going to be soon. But our input, like I said, was consider parking as a potential value for, the town, particularly for town hall. And if that doesn't work, and you could figure out a way to get the parking, save the building and reuse it. Any questions or comments about that? It's a small lot. I mean, it was a great gas station size lot, but not much more.
Yeah.
Okay. I did ask Kim Duffy, told her about our plans to change to a different date, and unfortunately, she turned us down.
Yeah.
Which means we're still pursuing a member for our vacancy. And once again, I go back to, we got a lot of volunteers positions, and we don't have a lot of volunteers sometimes, and.
Yeah.
Now that we have revised design guidelines, we can finish the property owner notification and creating our brochure. That'll be something that I'll work on and try and present back at our June meeting. And I think Nathan, you're the one who may have said it, is that is it really a good idea for us to have property owners if they live in a district and how do we do that in a way that makes, maybe it was William, how do we do that in a way that makes people glad that they have a house or a structure in the architectural preservation district? You know, and then, Cookie Main Street, we were, Richard, you had committed to maybe coming up with a list of potential contractors for repair of the steeple. Whether you've had a chance to do any work on that?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so we'll keep that as an open item. Anything else for the meeting tonight?
So I had an item to look at some historic tax credits. I found a few links. I probably could do a little bit more work on this. But it looks like there may be something like a 20% federal credit.
Mhm.
And then there's some Massachusetts credits as well, which I've just started digging into. So I'll keep doing that. So next time maybe we'll both have.
Okay, all right, great.
And I still, I have to, Lancaster and Whiting, I have to speak with the owner there. There's a party and is interested in that as well as in, 763 Mass Ave in both those properties and having those and restoring.
That'd be great, if that could happen.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Nathan?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye, and our next meeting will be the 13th of June, 7:30.
Aye.
All right, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.